All right, everyone. We got a very fun episode today. I'm here with Graham Chapman, who's joined me on the podcast before. Graham, you're actually the first person to make a second appearance on the podcast. So
honored.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And then we got Tripp Smith as well. We're actually sitting poolside at Tripp's house right now. So things could definitely be worse, but I'm excited about this. We've been talking about doing it here for a couple of weeks. So Tripp, Graham, thank you guys for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming over. Do you get a jacket with that second appearance? Or
I gotta get something, man.
I think you need to pay me actually for coming on the podcast twice now. But no, we're gonna just kind of have a conversation today, and so we'll get into this a little bit more. But Tripp's actually a franchise owner with Restoration One here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And Graham is, from what I understand, kind of the reason that Tripp considered a franchise business in the first place. So, Graham, you want to kind of share how you and Tripp connected in the first place and kind of how that led him to becoming a franchise owner?
I certainly can. It's one of those fun stories. It's like everybody in franchising. You know, everyone ends up in franchising by accident. And crazy enough, Tripp and I met each other by accident. One day, me and my former roommate, about more than – seems like it's like almost a decade ago, crazy enough, decided to go play a round of golf in the afternoon at this course where Tripp lived in Raleigh at the time. Tripp's turning to play another 18. I'm not sure what his wife thought about that, but, you know, he turned to play another 18. And we ended up
before kids.
That's right. It was before kids.
A lot easier.
So he had a lot more leeway then.
Yeah,
that's right.
The emergency nod doesn't happen often.
No.
That's right. And by stroke of luck, we got paired together, and I'll let Tripp weigh in here too, but seems to me we were best friends after a hole.
A hole, maybe 2 tee box. We started launching into music. Once I think we found out that we had similar tastes in music. It was on. Golf was definitely a background to the conversation for the rest of the 18 holes.
Especially in my game at that time.
That's true. I don't even remember the round. I don't even remember what I shot.
So you guys connected over music, and you guys just did a quick little jam session here. I think we're going to try to loop that into the intro for the podcast. So connected over music, played a round of golf together, and then I'm assuming you talked shop at some point.
We did. And
much later.
Well, I mean, like any pleasantries that you exchange on a first tee box when you first meet somebody. Tripp told me he worked for the DOT as an engineer, which he did for many years. I was already in franchising at that time. He was not at that point to consider that. But yeah, I mean, many years later, you know, Tripp always, his dream was always to live at the beach and to come kick it down here like you have. And congrats to you both for making that work. It's a pretty good life down here.
When are you moving?
Well, I got to figure out what my wife's doing with the chickens first. That she just got with COVID.
Yeah.
House across the street's going up.
That's true. Tripp keeps
Yeah.
getting on my case for that.
Graham's the proud father of how many chickens do you have now?
7.
7 chickens.
What's their names, real quick?
Let's see if I can do this. So
Huey,
the
Dewey, and Louie?
rooster is Merle. Merle, as after Merle Haggard. So my wife is a big country music fan, so they're all country related. So Merle. Well, I'm not sure why
Lane
it is
Staley
or not.
would have been a second option.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Merle's the rooster. The first 4, Merle, Wanda, Margot, and Loretta. So those are the first 4. And then 919 Marketing invested in some of these. We're going to have a live stream of the chickens at the house once we finish the coop in about a week. So that's coming. And the last 3 I'm going to struggle with because she just got them. But it is Dolly, Reba, and Lucille. I got them. I nailed them.
Tell her I'm disappointed that one of them's not named Chingy.
Yes, exactly. Because that is the common thread between your wife and mine, that they both like bad 90s rap. That's cute.
Yes, indeed they do.
Yeah, that's where my age.
Yeah, we'll save that story for another time. We'll spare the audience of where Chingy comes in. So anyways, congratulations on your chickens.
I don't know if that deserves a congratulations, but I'll take it.
So when you and Tripp met, were you working in franchising at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in franchising since I graduated from Davidson in 2009.
Okay. So you were in franchising, and then several years later, after y'all initially met on the golf course, somehow or another,
that's right. So
the
when
conversation of Tripp getting into a franchise
Yeah.
materialized.
So when
Several
Tripp,
years later.
that's right. So when like 5+ years later. So
Okay.
when Tripp was making this move down here, obviously he's thinking, what's my sort of next frontier? Because his wife Kelly has a great job in sales, does extremely well, and does a phenomenal at her job.
Can work from home.
Can work anywhere, which gave them the luxury to move down here. And Tripp retained his job in the DOT when he moved down here. But his thought was like, look, man, like I'm good at what I do. I like doing what I do here, but there's something else out there for me. I want to, take more control of my future.
Sure.
He got in touch with me just because he knew I was in the franchising space.
Right.
And, just tried to get him in touch with people that I knew could help. But, as you know, Wes, franchising is a very close-knit community. You know, a lot of great people in the space who can point people in the right direction. Obviously, as a marketing person, I'm not equipped to help someone find the right type of business for them. But, put Tripp in touch with a franchise coach, and that was where he went.
Yeah, I mean, so when I left Raleigh in 2015, I served a notice saying I was just going to walk away. So my boss at the time actually asked me, she had a year to retirement. She was like, look, if I get you a satellite office down in Wilmington, will you just stay for a year and just stay with me for a year? And then, and then so I was like, you know what, it actually works out because I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do. And it was a hard decision. And it came at, in that midlife kind of crisis kind of thing. What am I going to do next? And like Graham said, I mean, my wife can hold down the fort with what she does. So I was afforded that opportunity to kind of explore the options, but I had no idea what I was going to do. No idea. But the year with DOT down here gave me, get my feet planted to explore some opportunities. And those opportunities before me and Graham even talked with, I mean, there were food trucks. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I connected with my sister, who had a biomedical job, laboratory job, clinical trials, that type of work.
Yeah.
In her previous life, she decided to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, coincidental, the same time I moved down here was the same time her kids were grown up. The stay-at-home mom, which wasn't needed. Their kids were grown up.
Sure.
She was actually looking. She was like wondering what she's
going to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked, and we talked about these property management, food truck, everything. I had a year, so things just fell in place to where we still didn't know what we were going to do. And I think just talking with Graham every now and then about that, he was like, look, let me just introduce you to somebody that I know who's a franchise coach. I never thought about franchises. That was never even like,
not even on your radar.
No, my naiveness of even knowing that, first things were like, Subway. I'm not going to own a Subway.
It's so common.
Everyone thinks restaurants.
Yeah, everyone does. I did too before I got into franchising.
Yeah, it really does.
Naturally, there's a ton of them, and that's the biggest representation of franchising.
And the biggest constraint on most of the franchises, were regular hours, weekends, restaurant work, and I was like, no. What I'm going to do needs flexibility.
Yep.
And so we started putting together this list, and Graham saw that, I think. I might be putting words in his mouth. I need you to talk to somebody because he basically does this and can kind of take your thoughts, and he sees these things every day.
Yeah.
Take your skill set, her biomedical background and my engineering construction background, and marry those two together for, and give you some options. So basically, I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure, I'll hear him out. I wasn't even like, we still were I was humoring it. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean,
it was more humoring it at the beginning.
Yeah, it's how most people come into the process that I work with. It's very exploratory. It's not like they come into it dead set on, I'm going to buy a franchise. And most people are similar to where you were in that they'd never really thought about franchising. In their mind, franchising was fast food restaurants pretty much.
When you want to do your own thing, you want to do your own thing.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of leading it for me. Like if I'm going to do this, I want to be my own boss. I don't want to be, little did I know what was in store for me. You are. And we'll dive into that.
So, but when you decided, hey, I'm moving from Raleigh to Wilmington, I'm probably not going to stay with the DOT long term or finish my career there. Did you pretty much know at that point that business ownership was what you want to do. Maybe not a franchise, but you knew you wanted to do something in business for yourself.
It was not going back to work for
He was ready.
I had done that life. You know, we don't have to take a deep dive into that, but I mean, you know, on a surface level, I'd reached the age where I was kind of feeling withheld, or, you know, I don't want to blame. It was partly, mainly my own, you know, holding myself back. But I wanted to have, for better or worse, the steering wheel to my own career path. I wanted to determine my ambition and what I wanted to do, rather than be dependent upon somebody else's thought of me.
Yeah,
that was my biggest thing. So I was like, no, it was absolutely, I'm going to do this, fail or flop,
sink or swim.
If you don't mind,
I can always go back. Look, if it and I was kind of left it, and my boss that took over, that boss always said, you know, hey, look, I hear you, I get it. You hit me back, there'll always be opportunity. That, you know,
there's a place for you if you want to come back. Yeah, that's a safety net. That's nice.
However, I do want to ask you something. So, you know, when you're working in a government position of any type, this is not a dig on the DOT or anything specific.
No, we can dig. No, I joke. There were a lot of good things I took away.
Sure, but like, you know, you're not necessarily incentivized by doing great work when you're working in a government entity. And you're a driven dude who values results and wants to get after it. So
I'm glad you see that. And I didn't like who I was becoming. I always thought I was ambitious. I always thought, well, who I became in the last years of that, I started becoming the cliche paycheck employee. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that about my job. I almost felt like I was squatting, getting through the day. And, you know, at one time in every person's life, and I'm not knocking it, you know, I'm not knocking it. But at some point in everybody's time, you reach the crossroads of, what am I doing? Am I making a difference? And the difference I felt, and the difference I thought I may have to offer, which is a great segue into what I chose. And we can get that was a decision making of the opportunities presented to me by the franchise coach. Of why we did what we did was the big thing. But yeah, I didn't feel like I was making a difference. You got to understand, in DOT construction of roadways, you see a project from start to finish in 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, from design to build. Now, we were in the management side of that.
Yeah.
And kind of trying to maintain what was built, but I did see that. And
sure.
The satisfaction, the day-to-day satisfaction was tough.
It's slow progress. You're not like from day to day seeing a ton of progress being made.
You see creeps and numbers and like inches and like things. Maybe you're making a difference. That led me, and we'll get to why we chose. We chose what we did with the opportunities.
Was there a sense too that, you know, like you did well in what you'd been doing? You had this kind of drive and desire to do something else, do something for yourself. And was there part of it that you just wanted to kind of prove to yourself that you could do it?
It's a lot of self-proof.
Yeah.
I mean, you really go through, and you guys are young, but I mean, you get at a point in your life, especially when kids come into play, and you wonder, what am I doing? You kind of want to leave a legacy.
For sure.
I mean, I know that sounds over dramatic, but
that's a motive for most people.
Yeah.
Are you trying to leave a legacy for your chickens?
Yes.
You put just break it down. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a data guy at heart. So break it down to numbers. It's 8 hours of your day, every day, for your life. This is a third of your life. At some point, and a third of it's sleeping. At some point, you want to think a third of your life. Yeah, for some insomniacs. Yeah,
not for you.
Don't send me your hate emails. I'm one of you. But at some point you want to think that what you're doing is making a difference. Yeah, you are trying to make a living. Yeah, you are trying to support. Everybody wants to make money, but there is part of me that wanted to do. I don't know. It sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound crazy at all. And I would just say, you know, credit to you for actually, you know, making moves, right? Because you had a good job, you know, making a good living. Like you said, you were comfortable. There's a lot of people out there that they just settle, even if they have this kind of, you know, itch to go try something else. It's the fear of, it's the fear of getting outside of their comfort zone, though. And a lot of people can't get past that, even if they're not happy as a result. There's too many people out there, in my opinion, that do end up just settling. And I think
Yes.
you know, like you said, you got kids, you want to set an example for them, you want to leave a legacy. You know, we only have one shot at this life, right? It's too short to not go out and try different things and figure out, you know, what you really want to do so that you're happy. And so I would just say credit to you, because it could have been very easy to just stay where you were comfortable. And I think, unfortunately, too many people would have chosen that option where you were willing to take a risk.
And yeah, too many people, and I saw too many people do. I'll leave you with a funny note on leaving the DOT. It was coming around, and they were making cuts, and I just remember, I'll never forget. My lasting memory of the day that I know I decided I was going to leave was they were offering, before they were going to just cut, they had everybody in this big auditorium room, and they were like, we're taking, you know, if anybody wants early retirement or wants out, we're taking those. And I just remember looking over the crowd and seeing this fear of, I'm going to lose my job. And I just remember me thinking, raising my hand, where does that line start?
Yeah.
I was like,
sign me up.
Like, where's that at? You're going to buy out my, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I was, and I was just at that point. And again, not everybody can do it. And I know I had situations when the cards fell where I was, you know, it was tough. It was tough because I put 16 years in, and in DOT land, 30 years is full retirement with benefits for the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about anything. There were a lot of decisions, a lot of nights. Am I even doing? Even when I came down here and on my last year, I'm like, and not knowing what I was going to do. Yeah, man, it's restless. It's restless as hell. And
but there's a rational and a logical, or a rational and an emotional in what you just said. Right, it's like these cuts are coming. It was like the perfect situation for you, because it's like, look, I know I need to provide for my family. I know I need to have enough money available to make sure I'm good. But you were clear at a point where it's like, with the money we've saved up, what I've done in my life and my wife's job, there is something I can take a risk on, because we have a good foundation. And clearly, when your response to that situation is, where's the line for the cuts? It was time to make a jump to something else.
It made sense.
Right.
I'm a data guy. And the numbers and my buyout was the exact money I needed for the startup of what I was going to do.
Exactly.
I mean, it really just, I'm not a big believer in fate. I'll just say that. I'm not. I'm a big believer in you kind of make your own fate.
Absolutely.
You can make what you want to out of it. Yes, there's some
luck
signs.
matters.
There's some signs. There's luck involved. But, you know, I've been at the crossroads of my life, good and bad, so many times, and made so many good decisions and so many bad decisions. I knew I was responsible. It's accountability, really, comes down to that. People that don't want to be accountable don't believe in making your own decisions. They want to blame it on fate.
Yep.
People who are accountable for the good and the bad will just say, I did that. I fucked up. I did that.
You make your own fate.
I mean, you make your own luck. It's funny. Fantasy football. This was fantasy football week. Sorry to get off on the sidetrack.
All good.
I wish we had a camera, because I've got a title, and on the belt we're allowed a quote. And I know it's a cheesy movie quote, but it's something that resonates me, and it says, "A real man makes his own luck." And while that's a little narcissistic and extreme, part of that is true. There are forces that are in play for sure, and there are circumstances that happen, but if you want to go out there and do it, especially in this age, you guys, man, I know I'm going to play old man here, but in the younger generation, it wasn't impossible, but it was much harder to go out and start your own thing.
Yeah,
now,
no doubt.
Anybody with a little web knowledge, with a little know-how can go out there and do it. And I envy you guys. You guys can be your own bosses. You don't have to work.
I talked about that on a recent podcast I did. I mean, there's never been a better time in history to get into business for yourself, to take more control of your livelihood. And, you know, it's probably worth hitting here. I've said this many times on the podcast. You know, we're not talking to everybody out there. There's plenty of people out there that have zero desire, zero interest to get into business for themselves and be their own boss. And that's perfectly fine, right? That's not a, you know, criticism of them, but to the person that really has that drive or just wants to do it, you're running out of excuses. There's never been a better time. There's so many different angles you could take to get into business for yourself. And you could even start it on the side, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be this black and white, quit your job and start something else. There's a lot of different options.
Especially right now. I mean, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. I mean, what else is going to shake your safe career path, right?
It's been shaken. And interest
Exactly.
rates are super low. I mean,
You can get a loan for nothing
you
right
get a
now.
loan for nothing.
Yeah.
You find a problem that everyone's having. You're not the only one having that problem. You find the solution to it, and boom, you've got a business.
Yep.
And I know we're probably sidetracking, but
No, this is
I
good.
don't think so.
It
This is
is.
perfect for this.
Franchise or just doing your own thing. It is the time to take the wheel, and because I'm not getting political, but no one else is looking out for you. I don't care who's in office. I don't care who's in office. You've got to look out for yourself, and that's what this country is actually built upon: is looking out for yourself, doing your own thing, sink or swim. You're not going to be helped. You're not going to be saved by the government, either whoever's in office. And
not at all.
Be extremely hurt by them.
And you're not going to be saved by your employer either. I think
that's right.
One thing that COVID has opened a lot of people's eyes to is the fact that, because so many people think that the less risky route is taking the job with the steady salary, with the benefits, and they think that that's a hell of a lot more secure than going out on your own and starting a business. And I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Certainly not right now.
Again, business ownership's not for everyone, right? I mean, I think to be successful as any sort of an entrepreneur, you have to have confidence in yourself more than anything. But assuming you have that, as a business owner, you maintain a lot more control of your livelihood than you do when you work for someone else. They control your livelihood.
So that's what I was going to say. So there's the rub.
Yeah.
There's the good and the bad.
Sure.
Yeah. What if they're not doing well? Well, you're married to them.
Yeah.
You've got no control over it.
Yeah, because look at COVID, right? I mean, how many top performers in their job have been furloughed or let go due to COVID, right? It's not their fault. It's not like they suck at their job or they're not working hard. It's like they're doing everything.
It's just a fact.
Yeah, it's I say this all the time, but if it comes down to you or the bottom line, the company chooses the bottom line every single time. It's usually not personal. It's just, that's what companies have to do. They got to look out for their bottom line. And this has always been the case, but I think right now a lot of people are experiencing exactly that.
You can price yourself out of being an employee. I mean, you may have risen too far.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good segue too. So, I mean, you had reached a point in your career where it was like shit or get off the pot, essentially.
Well, in my situation, it was like either follow this through and I saw what my next position would be. And I'd been through 3 managers who was my boss. And I didn't want anything to do.
So that was what was next for you though, right?
It was, and it was on me. And I was just like, man, I know that's the next. And I don't want to sit in these meetings all day. I don't want to be in talking to the higher ups about the legislative. I want to kind of be the data guy, but then there's the rub of I want to make more. I want to advance, but I don't want that job.
Yeah.
And that was, the next stepping stone was a stone I didn't want to overturn, and it was everything made sense. I mean, in everything, my situation, again with my wife being able to hold us up and start this and the risk and it
I mean, that plays into it for sure. And, you mentioned this earlier, fate. I would say I don't necessarily believe in fate either, but what I do believe in is that if you open yourself up to opportunity, it will present itself. You just then got to, number one, be able to see it. And number two, be willing to jump on it when it presents itself. And some people do a better job of that than others. You got to, first of all, open yourself up to it. And again, I think it all comes down to having confidence in yourself.
It's scary. And it equates to like, this might not be such a good comparison, but like divorce. I mean, say you're married, you got to, whatever, say, well, that next, it's not working out. Do I need to leave this? It's a scary time, man. And you are divorcing from a career of 16 years.
That's right.
Yeah, that is a good
analogy. There's a lot committed to it.
It was not easy. I might be making it sound easier than it was. I'm more hindsight looking back on it. In the moment, it was stressful. I was anxious. I mean, it was everything a midlife crisis you read about stereotypes. It was, man.
I'll vouch for this. I was there the whole time.
I didn't get the convertible. I didn't get the convertible red Corvette or whatever. But,
you got the business instead.
At least you got something that can make money. That's good.
Yeah. Well, and we can we can dive into what I actually chose to do. But yeah, the decision is hard. We're probably making it sound as easy, but the point I think is it can be done. if it's there, if it's in your soul, whatever it is, make it happen, man. I mean, I don't want to go all YOLO, but
Yeah.
YOLO in a bad. This is YOLO in a good way, man.
Yeah.
The YOLO, I mean, you do only live once. Do something that makes you happy, and if you are happy and you're doing it well with something that you're good at, the money's going to come. I don't care what it is.
Yep.
Like if you're passionate about what you do, people see passionate. The talent may not even be there, and this is a good music thing, but most of the musicians that I gravitate towards are not the most talented.
Sure.
But it's the guy up there pouring.
They bring the energy.
Out,
yeah.
People notice.
And you
they notice that over the perfect
notes.
notes.
Be there.
That's right.
You want to be involved with that. If you're out there and not want to open your business, work for somebody that has the passion in what he's doing, because that's going to pay you off in the long run. Make sure you're working for somebody who loves what they're doing, not somebody that's going through the motions. Wes is exactly right. If everybody owned their own thing, there'd be nobody to work. So if you're going to work for somebody, just what I'd say is make sure they enjoy what they do. They treat you right. They recognize what you're doing. They reward you for what you're doing. They hold you accountable for what you're not doing.
Yeah.
That's a good man.
Well, and it's a great point you make. Like, do something you enjoy doing and the money will follow. I think too many people get into something because they're chasing the money and it ends up being something they don't enjoy doing. So even if business ownership is not something that you're interested in, but if you're in a job that you're miserable doing, go find another job. It doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to leave my job and start a business. But again, life is too short to spend such a huge chunk of it, your working time, doing something that you're miserable doing. It's
Wes, you brought up a good point. You don't have to just say, it felt like a cliff jump to me, but it was a year. It was a year, but I had announced it. It was a done deal. I could have came back. I could have stepped back, but you don't have to you can ease into it. Start it up. Keep doing it. Do it on the side. Will it be a little more hours, a little more work? But but the risk reward of that is going to be like, hey, is this thing picking up some steam? Is this possible? Try it out. See if it takes. Because if you're loving it and a few people are loving it, if you produce it to the masses, chances are you're going to be okay.
So you were clearly searching for something at the end of your career.
Searching
my inbox email wise and my Google chat feature would suggest that's the case. Tripp is a serial texter or emailer, overthinker, over communicator. The man fills an inbox like no other. So
I'm curious.
I got a lot on my mind, man. I got to get it out. It's not real. It's not real just in my head.
That's right. It's got to come out in some form.
Graham was a sounding board for many years of that, and I do appreciate that. And I think that's why him and I are such good friends. It goes back to the golf. We hit it off right away because he's very similar to me. He's a very passionate person. I could never see Graham squatting doing something he didn't love. He's got more of the. He would have quit I'm not knocking DOT, but I'm just saying he wouldn't have made it. He would have quit that job in 3 years.
Yeah.
He would have been long gone. I overstayed my welcome because I felt like it was me. It was me, not them. I didn't have anything to offer.
Sure.
Yeah.
My skill set didn't have anything to offer what they were probably asking.
So go into your process then, right? So it's ready to make a jump.
Because I was going to ask, so did Tripp approach you and say, hey, I know you're into this kind of franchise thing. Maybe is this something I should look at? Or was it more your idea to say, hey,
it was not my idea.
You want to make a change? Maybe
was it
you
my
should
idea?
consider
I don't remember this. Did I
try this? It was, you were like,
actually, that's not surprising.
No, I didn't have,
I thought you did
I didn't
come
have
to me.
franchise on the radar.
Oh, then it was me.
I might have picked your brain.
You did. That's what I'm thinking.
You and your dad was
a
business owner yourself.
I knew you needed something new, and I wanted to help you find that. I don't have the skill set.
I didn't see it.
You have a ton of energy, you have a ton of passion, like you said. So that could have been channeled in more productive stuff.
You just said it better than I did.
And I was like, dude, you've got to find what you can fuel your future with, that you really enjoy doing, that gets you out doing something that you can feel proud about, that you can feel like you made an impact, as you said.
Yes.
So take us through, once I guess I helped facilitate the introduction. So you're talking to somebody. Take us through that process and how you started to find something that did solve that for you.
Well, we had a few things, ideas in mind, and
What were they?
like food trucks.
Yeah.
No, this is we beat around food trucks. I mean, I could show you emails and texts
I remember those
with
conversations. Yeah.
me,
Oh, yeah.
my wife, my sister, and her husband about what could we do. This is because they were on board too.
Yeah.
It's same exact situation. My co-owner, who is my sister, her husband is a lead engineer at his firm, and
Baller.
balling, and had could afford her the same opportunity to explore her what she wanted to do,
Yep.
just like my wife could do with me. So it challenges fate, but it was just the circumstances on the table. So we food trucks, property management was on the board, just making real estate purchases, and then we got into that kind of thing. Okay, we make them. Well, what are we going to do with them? We get these dilapidated, kind of, we make the purchase. Well, we don't have the skill. Well, no, I do,
Right.
Candy. We could probably do it with the team, and then that kind of got the wheels turning of what we could do. Then insert Graham, who said, "Let me introduce you to some people or to franchise coach," and he heard us out. And Wes, this is going to sound very familiar. Maybe it's some of the things you do, with your clients.
Yep.
But it was basically list your priorities. What do you want? What do you want? And
Yep.
we listed them. And the funny thing is that we look back on it and laugh because the priorities we listed were flexibility, hours. But we had families. We wanted weekends. All the good stuff. When you're buying a home, you list all these things. The wish list. It's a pipe dream, but then he heard our background of me in construction and her in biology, and he came back. And the three that were on the table was a property management. We were on the right track there, I guess. I don't know what he does, Wes. You're going to be able to tell me more about kind of that interview process that he
Sure.
had with us. And property management. There was a construction kind of garage renovations, and there was what we ended up going with, which was restoration. Spoiler alert. But those three were on the table, and it was a little bit of a blur, but it's funny. We chose the restoration for a lot of reasons, but it met none of our original criteria. Flexibility.
Les can definitely
It's
get
an
into that.
emergency service business. There's no flexibility. If I get a call right now during this podcast, I've got to make things happen.
Sure.
But there is flexibility if there's not stuff going on. My guys, for instance, today we worked hard. They worked their asses off for 3 days. They had the day off, and we got a call an hour before this podcast. They had to jump in the van and go respond to it. It's an emergency service business. So weekends, there is no calendar, man. A Sunday can be a Monday and all that. So we laugh at it now because we're not in control of our time. We've set it up, that way. But
well, because there's a difference in so many cases. Because I know the franchise coach that you guys worked with. In my opinion, he's one of the best of the best. I've known him for years and personally have learned a ton from him. But yeah, I mean, you want to start by kind of listing out your priorities. Where a lot of people want to start is they've got a particular product or service that they know they want to get into, or they think they know they want to get into. And what a lot of people fail to think through is what is their role as the owner actually meant to be in a particular business. And once people start to better understand that and think through it, a lot of times what happens, not always, but a lot of times they realize that that particular business or that particular product or service or industry that they thought they wanted to get into, once they really start to understand how they'd be spending the majority of their time as a business owner in that particular space, they realize, well, shit, maybe this is not a very good fit for me, right? So you guys are in the restoration business. Yeah, it's emergency response, right? There is no calendar, but at the same time, you guys set it up the right way, have the right people in place, the right people on your team. It doesn't mean that you as the owner are responding at 2 a.m. to a basement being flooded. It doesn't mean that you don't do that. And I'm sure you had to do more of that in the early days. Yeah.
Oh man, I could tell you stories.
I believe it. I believe it. But, long term understanding, and I don't know as much about the business as you do, obviously, but, I think about it in like my wife and I's shelf genie business, right? At first glance, we're like, well, what the hell do we know about shelving? I'm the least handy guy you'll ever meet, right? So nobody wants me installing shelving in their house, believe me. But what we understood was that's not our role as the owner, right? Our role is to build a business that includes recruiting, training, and managing a team, right? A team of people that can go out and sell the products, a team of people that can install it and is actually capable of installing it, unlike myself. Managing the bigger picture, making sure there's enough business coming in, managing the back end, understanding the numbers, all of these things. And then all of a sudden it kind of clicked. Okay, maybe this is actually a good fit for us. We don't have to know custom shelving to be able to build this business.
That's right.
And
the cool thing is, it goes back to the very conception of our meeting each other, like golf, right? So we both love golf. Neither one of us wants to run a golfsmith. We don't be running a massive retail store that has absurd costs on real estate and overhead with employees.
Yeah,
you want to talk about a job that has no flexibility.
Yeah, because how are you spending your time? You're managing hourly employees.
You're running
store hours are on the
That's
door.
right, exactly.
Yeah, but you're managing employees. You're doing inventory. Yep. You're doing QuickBooks. You're not playing more golf just because you own a golfsmith. Exactly. Like you're probably playing a lot less golf, and then what would end up happening is you probably end up hating golf in the long run, right? That's a good example. But so you guys, I think that the way he set the process up is exactly the way it should be. And it's like when you start working with someone through that process, absolutely you want to hear them out. What's important to you? But I've seen it more times than not where people realize that what they come into the process thinking are their priorities are not always actually their true priorities. There's usually a few other layers, and you got to kind of dig into that. And a lot of times it just takes really looking at some different options to figure out what's appealing to you and what's not.
I think now looking back on it, and hearing what you just said, and it's a very correlation that owners and franchises coaches are supposed to be putting people in the best position to succeed.
Yep.
You just like you said, you don't have to even my franchise coach probably didn't know anything about the industry, but he didn't need to. He needed to hear, and he needed to put somebody in the best position to succeed. And I guess those three opportunities is what he saw as the best for us to succeed. As an owner, same way. But I will tell you, the first year or two, if you're going to be a true owner, and there are two types of owners.
Yeah.
There's a hands-on owner, and there's an owner that buys in and staffs it
an investor
out of the gate. That's more of an investor.
Yeah.
We were not the investor owner. Candy and I, we were the hands-on owner. We were the only two employees for the first 7 months of us starting out. And can I tell you some stories about being under a house in a crawl space, looking at my sister with snake skins and spider webs, being like, what if we
I call that the oh shit moment. Everyone has it. And most people have multiple of them once they start a business. It's like, oh shit, what was I thinking? What are we doing?
And you have to push through that. You got to keep your eye on what's going on right now, but you also got to keep the other eye on the bigger picture of what you
the long-term vision. What are you doing? What
are you trying to build? What are your goals? And you got to have a healthy balance of that.
Yeah.
Because if you get too focused on the future, you'll not live in the present. And if you get too focused on the present, you'll stay there and you won't grow. So we fight ourselves with that to this day.
Yep.
We moved pretty slowly out of the gate as far as Restoration One franchises, but I made it very clear in the beginning to corporate that we were going to be probably slower than the other ones because we're going to be hands-on owners.
You wanted to really learn it.
I wanted to know if I'm going to train someone. And I've got construction experience, but this industry, there's a science, there's accreditations you have to get. There's the insurance piece of it, which we were learning on the fly. There's a lot of things we had to learn on the fly. And there was no way I was going to risk the reputation of us to learn by mistake. It was learned by I mean, there is trial and error to everything, but it was like, okay, let's just take this slow. We did a lot of things that I look back that I wish we had done different. What we did right was we never bit off anything that we couldn't chew. Big thing in us is never overpromise and underdeliver. Always underpromise, overdeliver. I know it's a cliche, but I believe it to my heart.
Yep.
Don't take it if you can't do it. In fact, set the standard and set the real and exceed that. Don't take it and try to figure it out on the fly. So we didn't take things that we couldn't do, and we had opportunities. We took the things that I think we could, and then we learned and we built upon that. So we were slow moving.
But that's a smart approach. And one thing I would point out, because you brought up, there's kind of two different types of business owners, people that are going to be more hands-on, even if that's just in the beginning with the longer term goal of it, you kind of phasing into a point where you spend more of your time working on the business than in the business. And then there's more of the investor. Certain businesses are better suited for the investor than others, right? The Restoration One franchise that you got, in all likelihood, the way you guys started it, in my opinion, is the right way to do it, right? It's not the type, and if you're going to get into restaurants or something like that, sure, that's probably fine for an investor that's well capitalized to come in, buy some restaurants, hire a GM, and let the GM kind of take it and run with it, right?
It was right for us.
Yeah.
So tell me why. So why was Restoration the perfect concentric circle after you go through all this process, everything you're going through? How did that become the perfect sort of – because there's no perfect business for anybody.
Right.
So how do they capitalize on your skill set but fulfill your emotional needs? Why was that the answer?
So let me segue real quick. So when I say right for us, I meant right for the slow moving rather than just staff it. And that was right, the right approach for us. We saw other Restoration One franchises. I know their owners. They came into it with more money and just fully staffed it, hired somebody – for an operations manager. We wear all the hats, me and my sister. Mm-hmm. My sister will still jump in on the job if we need it.
That's awesome.
We still work. I wear a sales hat, a owner's hat, an operations manager. I'm a tech demo guy. As a matter of fact, last week I looked at my crew leader and I said, "I'm your laborer today. You tell me what you want." I mean, we wear all the hats.
That's cool though. That's very cool.
It was the right thing for us.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's right for everyone. Why we chose Restoration over the other opportunities that made sense were there's. I'm glad you said emotional, because there was a logical and an emotional thing. Mm-hmm. The logical was, well, I'm down at the beach. Okay. Yes, Restoration is sustainable, even if you're in Oklahoma.
Sure.
Everybody's got a toilet. Everybody's got a dishwasher. Everybody's got a wash machine.
There's always the potential for.
It's steady. What people think, the common misconception is, I bet you're rooting for a hurricane. Hell no. I live here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I don't want to have to do restoration on my own house.
Yeah, I have 4 trees, and my buddy Ken, who's my neighbor, he went through Florence with me. Hell no, man, I'm not rooting for a hurricane.
Nobody's rooting for that if you've been through it.
Never rooting for a hurricane. That was awesome.
Yeah, once the hurricane party's over and the hangover sets in, it gets a little sketchy.
First day felt like camping out. It almost felt like dorm room with upgraded to like the pleasures of. But then it was like, okay, no, this is real.
This kind of sucks, actually.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Florence was scary.
It's a bump.
It prepared you for COVID for 5 months.
True.
It put a pool in. But no, I mean, it's something you root for. That's the spike in any business. You can point to the spike.
That's right.
And that's our spike. But the reality of it is, the call we had today. I mean, it was a pipe bust in their kitchen, and it happens, and it happens more than you think it does. And everybody's got that situation. So it was the economic proof. The logical side of it was the economic proof, sustainability. It fit what her and I did. She had the mold behind the biology background. I had the construction, the project management. My degree at NC State University was construction management, construction engineering management. I mean, I know this is a very small scale of that, most of my Chris Smith, you out there.
But
Most
there,
of those guys are running, big construction
That's right.
firms.
but there was a level of understanding that you
Yeah.
could connect with more so than someone that didn't have the same background
Absolutely,
as you.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a lot of weaknesses. If I can point to a skill, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But I think I think I can put people in their positions for them to succeed. Kind of like what you got. And I'm more of a manager. I am hands-on. We're very hands-on, but the logical side of the economic proof, we are moving down here. The numbers made sense, and then the emotional attachment, especially with me. I can't speak for my sister, but I just know coming from the government and the not getting too much day-to-day satisfaction out of your job, wanting to. It's real. It sounds cheesy, but I wanted to help. I know. I feel like we're helping.
You're helping people when they're
in a
in
time of crisis.
a terrible situation that they didn't see coming. There's never a good time for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
They need a good company that can come in and like you put it, under promise and over deliver.
Yes, and take that stress off and guide the project and not just do what our little niche is, which is restoration remediation, but and then say we're done. We're good luck with the we see them from start to finish. I wouldn't have it any other way. We're as big or as little as they need us to be, meaning that if they have Joe, the plumber, that's always serviced their home, I'm not going to come in with my guy or my repair and fix use your guy. Use me for what I do, or use me for everything. Who do you want me?
You've got the flexibility to tailor your services to whatever each individual client needs. I think so.
The first thing in sales, any salesperson will tell you is don't pitch yourself. Listen to what they need.
Yeah,
that's a good salesperson. For all you salespeople out there, is I know you have your spiel and I know you have your thing, but what you really need to hear is who your audience is.
Shut up and listen.
Shut up and listen to their needs. If
nice
now don't BS them and don't just hear and say I can. Yeah. I'm not that guy, but I know people that can. If I can, and I will be the first one to tell them it's not what we do. But I've got to introduce you to John, and I stand by you. He's going to walk you through. And if it's something I can do, I am. But if you have your roofer or your HVAC, absolutely use them.
Sure.
I'm not coming in with that. So yeah, you really get emotionally involved in an emotionally charged situation anyway.
Yeah.
And you're really at the heart of me. I'm a problem solver, and I'll never get rid
of
that engineering.
I was gonna say that's the engineer in you, right? It's problem solving.
And when that phone rings, what do I have? I have a problem. Just like you said, it's not a bathroom remodel that these people have been planning or saving for 6 months.
It's an emergency.
Hey, I've been thinking about some water damage.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it's a good time for my basement to flood today.
It is shit. Can you guys help me? Yes, I can. Let me pull these strings. And I am trying to get out of doing the actual work myself and trying to more manage the project and putting people to succeed and doing what they do best.
Yeah.
I'm not the best. I'll tell you, I'm just not the best plumber. I'm not the best build back guy. I'm not the best restoration guy, but I've got people that are.
Yeah.
And we do know how to hire those people and bring those people on and make those introductions and to get the problem solved. I'm good at problem solving. This is Mila, my 6-year-old.
Say hey.
She has questions.
Say hello. She's being shy right now.
And she's the best musician here, for the record.
You guys know how to play Halo. That's my
But this is great.
This will probably get edited out.
No, it doesn't need to.
We'll
we
let
have
it
all
roll.
played Halo, some better than others.
I haven't played Halo in
We're
years.
going to do that, and we're going to treat you to a rock fest right after this podcast. We're going to jam a few tunes.
So here's a cool full circle moment for the listeners out there. So there's a lot of families involved in franchising. Tripp's obviously no different. So Tripp and his wife are investors in this business. Tripp's sister and his brother-in-law are invested in this business. And I was fortunate to have the opportunity to connect him with someone who could get him into business. So I am part of the reason that Tripp's in franchising. But when the hurricane hit that we've been talking about, my uncle has a house down here. He has a house over in Wrightsville Beach. And it got absolutely obliterated by that hurricane. Huge problems, just like Tripp's been talking about. not something he's planning for. Stuff that's like, I need help with my entire freaking house right now.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle calling my dad and talking about it. My dad's talking to me. I'm like, I need to call Tripp and say, Tripp, do you mind, going out? Because I don't think my uncle knew, and my uncle knows Tripp, but I don't think he knew at the time that Tripp ran
That's
that type
the
of
business
business
he
out
was
here.
in.
I'm
Yeah.
not positive. I'm the one who I was like, you need to call Tripp right now to come help you out. So a fun full circle moment where
Yeah.
all the
we got the
families
call.
get
People helping people.
That's right.
It's a beautiful thing.
That's right.
It is. I mean, and that's a great example of what we do. And I was going to help him out, but the random call of just people I don't even know.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
You connect with these people, and I'll tell you, at the end of these projects,
because they're vulnerable.
Oh, they're
when they
open,
talk to you,
open.
they're vulnerable,
I know his house,
right?
He was down
They're wide open.
So yeah, you connect with them on a different level than they would with a company that they're like proactively looking to do business with.
And in the beginning, when it was me and Candy, believe me, we were emotionally charged with them. I mean, with all the,
I bet.
And now I really check myself, and I tell my crew, and I'm like, look, I know it's another day of work for you, but keep in the back of your mind, this is either, the first time, whatever time, this is their business.
It's a life event for them.
This is their home.
Yeah.
We treat everybody
absolutely
the same way. Keep on your guard. I know you're trying to do the work, but realize what they're going through. You got to
have some empathy.
But we've had clients at the end of projects. We had this one guy. I'll never forget him. He cooked us a barbecue spread. He was so grateful. We've had people over. They stay in touch. I've got a neighbor of mine that appreciates us for what we've done. She's had 3 She's had us. We've worked on her house 3 times, and I feel like we've done good. And if you do the right thing, we don't have a lot of salespeople. And I'll say this: you don't need a lot of sales and marketing if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
In a town like Wilmington,
yep,
and many other towns just like Wilmington, if you're doing the right thing, word gets out fast. If you're doing the wrong thing,
it gets out fast. Probably even faster if you're doing the wrong thing. But I think that's a big part of finding the right business for you, whether it's a franchise or not, is, thinking through, is this something that, number one, I can be proud of at the end of the day, right? Am I actually helping people? Am I truly adding value? And that can come in a lot of different shapes, sizes, whatever, right? I mean, at surface level, restoration probably doesn't seem like the type of business where you're like, it doesn't seem like the feel-good business, but it really is. I mean, you're helping people when they're in a terrible spot.
Absolutely. I want to thank.
Okay.
I want to thank Tripp for helping my uncle. Shouts to Uncle Al, the baddest man on the planet. So thank you for doing that. But those are great stories, man.
Well, yeah, and his was a unique one where, that falls back to something I mentioned. We're whatever you want us to be, and Al needed us to be. He had construction guys that could do the work. He needed help with the insurance claim portion of it. We were that piece of the puzzle for him. We didn't actually do much work other than stabilize things for his guys. He knew guys. Al knows everybody.
Al knows everybody.
But Al didn't know a guy that could.
He's the guy who knows the guy.
Could work, the insides of the insurance.
That's right.
So we were that for him. We're a lot more for a lot of other people. We're a lot less for. I mean, I love, I didn't get that. It goes back to the day-to-day satisfaction. Every one of these, look, I've had 3 dozen dishwasher fills, 2 dozen, well, I don't know the numbers of it, but every one of those is different.
Yeah.
When I respond to it. And that's what I dug about it is when I get that call, it may be the same story, but it's not the same people. It's not the same house. Not even the same logistic project scope. It's and I dig that every call. It's it still keeps me on edge, keeps you on your toes. You don't know what you're walking into. The excitement of that feeds my beast. I mean, everybody's got a beast to feed, and you need to find something that feeds your beast. I mean, that's the best advice I get. This isn't going to be for. I'm going to tell you right now. When people want to apply for a job here, I will tell them it's not for everybody. You you got to be able to handle the emotional swings, the stress, the work. It's hard work, but is there satisfaction in it, and you're going to enjoy what you're doing? If you do, yeah, there's a lot of value.
Well, I think a key to it is keeping an open mind. When you go into this process of looking for a business, again, franchise or not, it's keeping an open mind, right? Because, my guess would be when you guys came into it, like I said, you're thinking about food trucks, property management. My guess is restoration was not really on your radar at the top of your list.
No, I can tell you our franchise coach brought that to the table. And here we are. So there's the value. There's some things I would have done differently, but at the core, he did bring it. I didn't even know this. I knew in the back of my mind kind of what it was, but yeah, I know,
it wasn't
didn't
something.
know it was a franchise.
Yeah, well, but you probably wouldn't have sought out restoration opportunities.
No, I did. He did. He knew people. That goes back to putting people where they, he brought an opportunity, just like you said, Wes, and he brought an opportunity to the table. We had to walk through it. In the end, you're going to be the one that has
for sure.
You're going to bring opportunities for your clients. You're going to present them. You're going to do what you do best, and they're going to have to eventually take the plunge and walk through the door. But you present opportunities, which I in its own right has got to be rewarding. I haven't talked to my franchise coach in a while, but I imagine his job satisfaction is seeing people succeed. And
it's definitely rewarding. I mean, for me, franchising and owning a franchise has changed our life in a huge way, right? So I look at this as a way I can help other people at least explore the same thing. But you make an important point. As a franchise coach or consultant, it's not my role to make the decision for someone, right? It's to show them opportunities that in all likelihood would have never been on their radar otherwise, and then coach them through the investigative process, because there is an art to going through that process the right way and really gathering the information that you need to make an educated and a confident decision as to whether or not it's truly a good fit for you. But it's not the coach or the consultant's role to make the decision for you, right? It's really, the way I look at it is, it's helping someone navigate what would be an extremely overwhelming process to try to navigate on their own.
What you just said,
it's coaches.
What you just said was everything I tell when I walk into a client when they call me.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I do not own this home. I do not own this business. I am here for you to give you an educated opinion, a recommendation, but in the end, you are going to define the scope.
Yeah.
I will tell you what I think needs to be done based on experience, but I am not here to force your hand on anything. I'm here to guide you through the process. You're going to tell me if this is doable, if this, you're going to make the call. This is your home. This is your business. I'm here for you, and if you have any questions, but you are going to authorize everything that we do.
And that goes back to what you said earlier about, good salespeople, they listen and they solve problems for people, right? And same thing for, I think, a good franchise consultant. Like, I get the question all the time from people I talk to. They're like, hey man, what's the best franchise out there? And I'm like, that's a loaded question and one that's impossible to answer, because, right, what's the best for you is probably not the best for me, wouldn't be the best for Graham. It's a pretty personalized thing. And so the starting point for me, and I know, the coach that you worked with takes the same approach, it's really getting to know the person or the individuals that you're working with. And only then can you start to identify what options may be a good fit for them. And it's certainly not a perfect science. So talk a little bit about, the investigative process that you went through looking at these different franchises that he brought to the table, and then talk a little bit about like what you would do differently knowing what you know now.
So the investigative process was he presented the opportunities, and he gave us the contacts to reach out to do our own kind of vetting research, and we talked to the owners of real active owners of these franchises. And I was very probably I asked the hard questions, the candid questions, and these were I don't know. You could probably tell me more. Were they even prepped for my phone call? Were they a spokesperson for the franchise?
Typically, no.
Typically,
no. I mean, franchising is like anything, right? You got good franchises, bad franchises. Some use the right approach, others not so much, and that's just my opinion. But no, good franchises, they want their franchisees to be straight with someone, because look, the way franchising works is it's a partnership, right? The franchisor is only as successful as the franchisees, and a franchisee is not going to be successful if they don't have a realistic understanding coming into it of what it's going to really take for them to be successful. If they've got their franchisees out there painting this rosy picture of what it's like, and it's not like that in reality, like, you're going to have a bunch of unsuccessful franchisees, which is not in the franchisor's best interest at all. So no, typically most good franchises, they may have kind of like a list of franchisees that they know are willing to have these conversations, right? And they're willing to make the time to do it, but they're not coaching them on what to say and what not to say. It's actually illegal to incentivize a franchisee to try to sell, candidates that they're talking to. I mean, one of the because franchising is regulated by the FTC, right? And that's, to me, one of the things that makes it unique, because think about other investment opportunities out there. I can't think of any that you get the same type of insight into that you do with a franchise. Because like you mentioned, you got to talk to actual owners operating the business. You got to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly before you ever made a decision or a commitment. You saw a franchise disclosure document, right? That's got numbers in it, like actual numbers that you can crunch and work with. It's not a guarantee. There's no guarantees, but you got a lot of data, a lot of insight, got to have conversations with people operating the business. And I always coach people, of course, you want to talk to top performing franchisees in a company, right? You want to learn from the best of the best, figure out what they're doing, what makes them the best. But you also want to talk to middle of the road franchisees. You want to talk to underperforming franchisees, which is counterintuitive to some, but I'm like, hell yeah, talk to the person that's really sucking some wind.
You want to talk to people who left the system and can give you reasons why. They could be good reasons.
We were given a list of owners. Yeah, you guys are all over it. We talked about that internally. I can't really recall if our franchise coach, I think we just had a list, and we made that decision. I was like, I want to talk to somebody new, struggling, if you will, middle, and a high. I wanted to see the whole scale of what could be, what's real, and the in between. We did.
That's smart.
And we went location. I wanted to talk to someone in a coastal community.
Yeah, very smart.
Of all the three, and in the end, it just. Yeah, after talking to everyone, and we did get real, and I'm glad you said that, because I felt like I got real answers from most of those people, and they weren't just selling it.
Yeah,
I felt there were real conversations, and there were people in the top 10 list in their franchises, and there were people that just were going to be 9 months ahead of us.
Well,
like, what were your how's this really looking?
That's a great point, right? Because you want to talk to people that are newer, and they may not even be struggling, right? They're just new and they're still figuring it out. Because look, someone that's 9 months ahead of you is going to be able to talk to you a lot better about, this is what training looks like, this is what on, versus the guy that's 6 years in. He probably doesn't even remember training, and chances are, hopefully, the training's evolved quite a bit over a 6-year period. So, I think it sounds like you guys went through that part of the process the right way, and I always tell people that that you call it validation is typically what you hear referred to as. You're validating everything you're learning from the franchisor with the actual franchisees. Bar none, that's the most valuable step of the process.
Well, it's human nature to seek answers to what you're leaning towards. I tried to step away. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You want them to say, yeah, you're right. You're thinking about this, right?
Yeah. So I really tried to separate that, and I tried to get the real, and I asked the tough questions, because I'm a prepare for the worst but believe in the best.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear what was, those were my questions, and I'm an overthinker, and I probably freak some of these people out. Asking, like, I want to hear the tough. Like, I can hear all the money roll. Okay, that's great, man. That's good to hear that opportunity's there. But what's the real? Like, what's the day to day? What's the climb, the slow climb? The months that you're not doing well. I asked all those questions. In the end, I mean, it was pretty consistent. The downfalls were what I didn't know then, what I do know now is that it's so different. It's these things are based on so many different ingredients, if you will, of different owners, what they brought to the table, where they live, how they chose to staff. There was just so much. I took
There's so many different variables.
Yeah, so many variables, and that I took a lot of things for flat that I should have took like a little pieces of things that made the most sense of where we were at. We were at that point, actually, we were sold. We needed the validation, and we were seeking that. So if I could go back and do it different, I would have asked a lot of the pitfalls questions that we eventually ran into, and we had to overcome and kind of trial and error. And that goes back to what we were talking about, kind of a slow start.
Yeah.
Give us one of those. What were one of those pitfalls?
In particular, one in our industry, and I'm not gonna badmouth any competitors, but what I was told was like you need to, and what makes sense for us is not having experience in the industry, was hire somebody with experience. Well, okay, experience is great. What kind of experience? So just hiring somebody that's done this work is
because they might also have bad habits that don't jive with your core competencies or the values that you're trying to live out in your business.
Yeah. Roll over from my competitors that I was like, whoa, okay, I hear you, but that's not the way we're going to do it. Breaking those bad habits. So we did. Our first couple of hires were experienced people. What we eventually learned was, no, I'm going to get these ambitious people that I can train. It's going to be a slower roll, but I'm going to train them how we want to do this. And they're green and they're not carrying any bad habits. And this is the way we're going to do it. Look, in the end, our industry, it is based on certifications, and this is what it is. But there are different ways of getting there.
Yeah.
No one way to do it.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it the right way. We're going to wear our booties. And we're going to respect people. I don't care if we're in a $100,000 home or a $3 million home on figure eight. We're going to. This is that person's manor.
Yeah.
And I don't care what
it's their castle.
It is.
Yeah.
We're gonna, and I don't care if it looks like, if they're not clean. We're still gonna respect the floors. We're gonna come in there. We're gonna do what we do, no matter what. And those are the things you learn on the fly.
Yeah, we learned that in our business too, right? We were definitely told, as new franchisees, hey, if you can go hire a salesperson that has similar sales experience to this, an installer that's got relevant experience, that's exactly what you want. And we learned the hard way in a couple of instances that, they might have some applicable experience, but they also bring a lot of bad habits that didn't, mesh with our values in our business. So we've shifted over the years to where we're hiring based on personality, and knowing that, knowing we can train them to do what they need to do. You can't train personality. And to your point, it's all about providing a good experience for the client, and respect is the biggest part of that, I think. And you can't train someone to be respectful or not. And so we learned it the hard way.
In you or not, you're likable or not, you're respectful or you're not. You can know, like I said, you can know what you're doing in this industry. But this is a people game, man. Again, it goes back. You're getting people in crises, and you can dry their home out and get them worry-free back in pre-loss condition. But if you're not doing it in the right way and the respectful way, you can't teach that. I can teach anybody how to do what we do. Yes, you said it. You said it best. You can't teach anybody how to treat people. It's a people person game.
Yeah, and that's the number one most important thing, because you hit on this earlier. Your reputation as a business owner is everything, right? And you get a reputation for not treating people the right way, that spreads faster than a good reputation does, right? And it's very difficult to come back from that. Once that reputation's kind of out there, even if you've made changes and from that point on kind of start doing things the right way, hard to combat that negative reputation that may already be out there.
I think you said it. Good news travels fast. Bad
Yeah.
news travels faster. And
Yep.
people were well. Anybody out there listening, you research a product. What do? You're in search of what you want to justify. If you've sold yourself on that product, you want to look at the good reviews of why I should buy this. The smart thing to do is look at the bad reviews. Well, what were the bad things people had to say?
Yeah.
And if it was a product, and if you can separate emotion and you can understand that, well, everything off the assembly line is going to have a lemon. What did they do? Here's what I tell people: we are not mistake free.
Sure.
What did we do about it? Were we accountable? Did we?
Yeah.
make
How'd you
things
remedy
right?
the situation?
Yes, absolutely. Did we make it right? No one's gonna be mistake free.
Well, on that note too, it's like even when you're talking to franchisees, right? You talk to someone that's underperforming, you're gonna pretty quickly be able to figure out, are they underperforming because the system's bad or the business is bad, or are they underperforming because they're bad, right? I think you brought this up earlier. You know, there's plenty of people out there that are always looking to point the finger at someone other than themselves when things aren't going well. And it's pretty easy to pick up on. If you're talking to a franchise owner that's not doing well in their business, you're gonna know pretty quickly into a conversation if it's their fault or the franchisor's fault. And a lot of times what you find is, you know, it's someone with a victim mentality, and they're pointing the finger at
That
other
is the
people.
culture.
Yeah.
Accountability is a lot. Falling on your sword. And yes, appreciate that refresh.
Always.
Falling on your sword is a lost art. Lost art. It's just the right thing to do.
I don't know if it's a lost art. I think there have been plenty of people in any generation who are unwilling to take responsibility for stuff that happens.
It's more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not. I don't want to make it a generational thing.
You're not hurting my feelings. I'm just saying.
No. It is. It's more in the social media PR. Cover
Yes,
your ass,
sure.
or it's going to
Yes,
get out.
that's right.
It
Oh,
is-
he's hitting on
hyper.
PR now.
Well, yeah, but if you make
It's
a
a new
mistake
game
these
today,
days, it goes out to the masses.
It does.
So you
Quick.
naturally
Quick.
go. People naturally go
CYA.
into a defense,
Mhm.
and they won't fall on the sword. But what they got to understand is 9 times out of 10, if you are wrong, admit you're wrong. Humans are humans. I think if you give humans the credit, that if you just take accountability and make things right, you're gonna be like, well, a reasonable human being is gonna be like, I make mistakes. Wait, I like the way he recovered from that.
Yeah, most people are more than willing to get past mistakes that are made if they feel like the company is
Real, authentic.
actively
owning
trying to make it right? They get it, they own up to it, and they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to make it right versus just being like, oh, well.
But if you deflect, people are going to be.
They'll be all over
Oh
it.
no,
Yeah.
you ain't. I mean,
That's
and then
right.
They'll be all over it, right?
They'll
And
get a social media lynching going on, and you're in. It's just it's that's what I meant. Not
That's right.
That's the time we live in.
No,
It's
no,
a
totally.
it's a very unique culture that just owning it is kind of a lost art. And what people say, that's the quickest way to make somebody forget is just absorb it.
Admit it.
Yeah.
Absorb it.
Make it
And
right.
take it on the chin, and but make it right. You deflect, it's gonna just linger.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing you want with social media.
It's the worst thing.
Yeah.
It's just you don't want to be in the news for long.
No, you do
not.
not.
In that way.
Not in
You
that
want to
way.
get
Not
out of the
at
news.
all.
Oh, this isn't a story anymore. He's already said, and
Yeah.
he's doing something about it. Let's move on to that other guy.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's
yeah,
just-
because that's not an interesting story.
not
Oh,
interesting.
business owner messes up and does everything in their
And
power to
owns
make it right.
we don't
That's
want
not going to
that
make any
story.
headlines.
Yes,
I can
Yeah.
validate that.
yeah. But in the end, I mean, just doing the right thing. I mean, that's the.
And what I tell people, you know, kind of circling back to the investigative piece, you know, when you're looking at franchises, you want to talk to the underperformers, right? And some of them are going to be the excuse makers. It's not me, it's them. And most people can see through that. There's other people that, you know, would probably sit here and tell you, yeah, my business isn't doing all that great. It's partially my fault. Or I've realized this is just not the right business for me to be in. And what I coach people to do is have these conversations with all of these different franchise owners, right? What your biggest takeaway should be is, what does it take to be successful? What are the characteristics that all of the top performers have in common? What are the characteristics that the underperformers have in common? And that's when it's time to get brutally honest with yourself to look in the mirror and say, am I more likely to come into this business and perform like the top performers that I've talked to, or perform like the underperformers that I've talked to? And, if you're being honest with yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, you know what, after everything I've learned, I don't think this is the right business for me. I don't know that I have the characteristics that the top performers in this particular business have. Hell of a lot better to figure that out before you're committed than figuring it out after the fact, and you've sunk money into it, time into it. You know what? If it's not the right business for you, great. That's what the whole point of this process, right? It's more of an elimination process than it is a selection process. It's figure out what's not a good fit, so then you can zone in or hone in on what is actually a good fit. And some people, I guess, have trouble looking in the mirror and saying,
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, it's a hot topic with us because we were slow starters, and human nature is you don't want to admit what you're doing wrong. You want to blame, and I'd be a hypocrite of saying the first year of us opening this up, we didn't blame. Oh wait, what the training. I can give you things, but in the end, after I got past that, yes, there's going to be nothing's perfect. In the end, it comes down to us deciding, wait, we're capable. Let's stop blaming. Let's stop pointing the finger. What can we do about this? Problem solving in the end. And we problem solved our own situation. And we weren't underperforming for nobody's reasons but our own. If I'll say this, if you're a blame the world and make excuses mentality, don't ever open a business.
Don't
ever go into a business for yourself because you're going to have, in the first year or two, you're going to have every reason to blame everyone but yourself.
No doubt.
You are going to have to get yourself out of holes, and no one's there pulling you back. Government, corporate, franchise, they're not pulling you out. You are pulling yourself out. That's why you did this. You wanted to own a business. Own it.
Yes.
Be a business owner. Don't let someone own you. Don't look.
A franchise doesn't mean that it's going to be done for you.
That's right. And you're just going to sit back and collect royalty.
And to your, a good franchisor should put their franchisees in a better position for success.
And support them. I will say
and support them.
And support them.
Because you are paying royalties
and make
for that
them
support.
grow. Yes. Don't. A good franchisor would not look for ways to exploit their franchisees to make a little extra buck. Royalties are going to come. Make them successful.
The royalties come the more successful the franchisees are.
And the more they're going to make, the more you're going to get royalties, and you're all going to grow together. That was the kind of dream and vision, and reason why we chose franchise over private, rather than the Smith and Phillips restoration. We went with restoration.
Sounds like Smith and Wesson.
We wanted to, it was very close. But that's why we went instead of our own. We wanted kind of the playbook. I'm in construction, she's in biology, but we didn't really know this. We needed, in the end, that's why we did franchises, be a franchisee rather than just start our own restoration business. We needed that support in the beginning. We started blaming, that we didn't get everything, but in the end, it was like, we got this. And let's do what we came to do and own a business and be successful. And you know what? We'll pat ourselves on the back, or we'll, tough luck, but it will be us. It will be our making or failure.
You have to have that mentality, and there's no perfect franchise out there. Doesn't exist. If that's what you're looking for, don't even waste your time. Nope. It's not out there. A lot of people I talk to, they're like, well, you got these upfront fees to become a franchisee. You've got ongoing fees. To me, that's a simple formula, right? You got to understand, all right,
you certainly have them a Shelf Genie.
100%. You got to understand, and I'll use a Shelf Genie example to illustrate what I'm saying here. You got to understand, first of all right, what do I get in exchange for the upfront fees? That's typically a franchise fee, right? Well, in service-based businesses like Restoration One or Shelf Genie, you get a territory, right? That's actually an asset. There's a monetary value that can be assigned to that territory, right? And as a business owner, you have the ability to exit that business at some point should you decide you want to, right? So that territory that you own is an asset. You also get access to the playbook, the systems, the processes, the training, the onboarding. It's never going to be perfect, but what it should do is get you open and get you ramped up quicker than you would if you were trying to figure it all out on your own in that same business.
Did it do that? Yes. It would have been even slower.
Yeah.
Were our expectations a little more? Probably so, but again, I'll point back to us and own that and fall on our sword saying, well, we were looking to be just guided and be owners. Little did we know, oh, wait, we got to jump in here and do something about it. And yeah, there is a middle ground, man. I don't live on the extremes in any part of my life. I like to live in the middle. I can definitely say there were mistakes on both ends, and there's going to be mistakes.
Because
no perfect
no,
franchise.
Doesn't exist.
Well, get into your shelf genie thing too, because
what I was going to say,
because you're paying a good amount of money, but it helps you a lot.
Well, yeah, sure. So, like in Shelf Genie's example, and every franchise is going to be different in terms of how they add value on an ongoing basis to their franchisees. But in my experience, most people looking at franchises, they focus most of their attention on the upfront fees. And that's important, and the upfront support, that's important.
About margins, man.
Yeah, for sure. And what I always coach people is you got to understand what the ongoing value is that the franchisor is going to add, because whatever the business is, at some point, you're not going to rely on the franchisor any longer to train you the business and to teach you. At some point, you're going to know it. You're going to be there. So how are they continuously adding value? Because you are always going to be paying something back to the franchisor. It's typically in the form of a royalty, which is a percentage of your gross revenue. So for Shelf Genie, for example, we pay a total of 7% of our revenue back to the franchisor. Well, Shelf Genie's vertically integrated with their manufacturing, so we buy our products through Shelf Genie. Well, I can pretty quickly figure out that we're paying at least 15, if not closer to 20% less for our products because we're a Shelf Genie franchisee versus if we were Wes and Kelly's custom shelving business and sourcing it from third parties. So that 7% alone, I'm still coming out probably 13% net better. Plus there's other advantages, right?
It's good quality too.
And again, where the value's added is going to vary depending on the type of business that you're in, right? It's probably not the same for Restoration One.
But there's value being a franchisee. They have corporate accounts. They have national accounts that we dive as much as you want to in the value of my particular one. But yeah, they bring, for example, they have a account that we got the water. The Walgreens and Rite Aids. I would not normally have that, and those present themselves, and I would normally probably not even be on the table in discussion.
That's right.
Small Smith and Phillips Restoration Company, they wouldn't even consider us to do some of these larger commercial jobs that we've done. No, I wouldn't be on the table.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And they take a piece of that, and I don't know the numbers if it would wash out or whatever, but yeah, they bring that to the table.
It's business that you probably wouldn't have had otherwise, even if it's less profitable for you than your other jobs that you go out and kind of get on your own. It's still impacting your bottom line in a positive way because that's business you wouldn't have had otherwise.
In the end, you're going to make your reputation. That is going to be who you are locally as a national franchise.
That's right.
Your reputation is going to be who you are. I don't care what opportunities, the work you do, you are in full control of.
Yeah.
No matter if you're a Subway or whatever, how you make that sandwich, man. Those people coming in are going to remember how you made that.
Sure.
Sandwich.
That's right.
Yeah,
no
is
doubt.
it the same tuna sandwich?
Tuna.
I guess. But were you served right? Were you greeted? Do you want to go back there? Are you gonna refer those people out? I mean, I know it's a lame example, but there's a Subway I'll go to and there's a Subway I want. They got the same tuna salad, but I don't know, man. It's just something about
it's the experience. Yeah, it's the experience that you have.
It is, and that relates tenfold, 20-fold, 100-fold, whatever to what I do. And anybody can draw your home out, but are we going to walk you through the? I mean, you're talking about things in our industry that if you don't give the personal connection and you're really just looking to hit your numbers or whatever, and you're not trying to, this is an emotional industry. I mean, people are having their worst day when they're calling. How were they treated? And they're going to look back on it because it's not a pair of shoes they bought. That I have a really good experience.
Yeah, they probably don't think twice about it after the fact or something like that.
Did they help
That's
me
the ideal situation.
Were they walking me through? That's where they remember us. That's what I can fully take credit for me and my owner That's what we brought to the table. What our corporate brought to the table were the opportunities. Like you said, it is actually we get discounted rates on commercial equipment. Our equipment is not cheap. These are commercial dehumidifiers. You can walk in Lowe's and buy one for $400, $500. It ain't doing what our $2,000 commercial grade dehumidifiers.
But you get it for less.
Much less.
Yeah.
Much less. So yeah, there's an advantage to that. If we had opened up, we would have probably even been slower started. So if you're just being a numbers data guy, is that 7% loyalty? I don't know what you pay in royalties.
7%. Yeah.
Is that 7% given up, given that playbook, given those opportunities that hopefully that they're making on a national level, saving you on the bottom line?
Yep.
And we're probably at a break even or maybe even a little better on that. In my
opinion, you should be able to, like, just looking at the numbers, because there's intangible value with good franchise systems too that aren't going to show up in the numbers. But if you're just looking at the numbers, you should be able to pretty clearly see that you're coming out net better after all of your fees are paid.
Are you a poker player, Wes?
Not really.
There's implied odds and there's real table odds going on.
Yeah.
You're around two degenerate gamblers.
There's odds in a poker game where the pot value versus the card you're holding, but there's implied odds that people don't think about. And a good poker player thinks about the implied odds. Hey, well, if I do this, like playing chess, well, if I do this, what's going to happen? What's the next step? What are the other things that the dominoes that are going to fall that increase that value?
Yeah.
Not just what's happening right now,
Sure.
but it's again, keep your eye on what's going on now, but also keep your eye on the long term.
Well, and that's a great point, right? Which is something I was getting ready to bring up, because some of the intangibles that aren't going to show up in the numbers in terms of the value associated with, and I keep saying a good franchise, because again, not all franchises are created equal. In my consulting business, I call it an inventory of about 200 franchise companies that's what I go to find matches for people.
Okay.
That's 200 out of like 3,000 plus franchise companies out there, right? Well, there's a reason for that.
Yep.
It's because these are companies that have been vetted, that have proven that they do truly add value to their franchisees. Not all franchise companies do that.
So as a franchise coach, I want to, if I don't mind putting you on the spot,
Sure.
As a franchise coach, you guys you vet franchises. You won't go to bat for every or recommend just any franchise. Like, you've done your homework on them, and you truly, if you're recommending them, you believe in them, and you vetted them.
No doubt.
You've asked the questions. It's just not, hey, a franchise.
I'm not like
territory.
I'm not Google searching.
I really need to sell this territory.
Yeah,
we got a prospective buyer.
Well, his reputation matters too. If he sells you a bad business, that hurts him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so similar to the franchisor-franchisee relationship, right? So, and again, just like I said with franchises, not all franchise consultants are created equal or take the same approach to it. For me, and the network that I'm a part of, which is FranChoice, which the coach that you worked with is also a part of FranChoice. It's very important to all of us that we can confidently introduce people to franchise companies, knowing that they have good systems and processes in place, that they are going to do what they say they're going to do for their franchisees. Again, none of them are perfect. But there's a lot of vetting that goes into it, right? Everything from understanding who's at the leadership of these companies, how well capitalized is the actual franchisor. There's a lot of freaking franchise companies out there that are bootstrapping this shit. Not a good spot to be in as a franchisee. If your franchisor goes under, you're screwed.
Well, I imagine
right?
Graham, and I imagine Graham as well. I mean, you don't just take any, you guys, but you just won't take any and market. You believe in them, right?
No,
you believe in the product, and
yeah, it has to make sense on both sides. I will interject. This is my opportunity to tell Wes something he doesn't know. So,
learn something new every day.
Yeah. So Tripp is a man of many nicknames, most of which he's given himself.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm a man of very little nicknames, zero actually. So
I've got a
it's
few
hard to
for
make.
you.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to yours. But Wes has a nickname that he's unaware of. So my mom bought a business with Wes, went through the process, did a great job. It worked out very well.
What's your mom's nickname for me?
That's what I'm getting to.
All right, I'm curious.
This is getting good.
So my
Yeah.
mom's British, but she's also Southern at this point. So she's lived in the States longer than she lived in England, but she was born and raised there. She
I
had
did not
18
know
years
that.
there. Yeah.
She doesn't have an
British,
accent at all.
unless she talks to her sister.
I can hear it. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Does
Right.
she? I'm just curious if she drinks. Does her accent
It's
come
not
out?
a drinking thing. It's
No.
a
It's
pure.
your company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
She-
like when I go back to Burlington, like I can't stand when I listen to this, I'm gonna hear my redneck in me. But
The twang. It's not
Oh,
redneck.
my
It's just
God.
it's a twang.
but you get me back in Burlington with
It comes out.
my cousins and my.
Yeah.
and
Hey,
who
what
I
I've
grew up
learned
with,
is-
and all of a sudden it is. Oh, it goes, yeah, man. I mean, I do,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, who are you, man?
One thing I've learned is that ladies that are not from the South, they love the Southern twang.
Absolutely.
It's appealing to them for whatever reason. I don't see it, but anyway. So,
So
yeah,
do you want the nickname? Or
yeah,
what?
I do.
So this might stick, and it actually is relevant.
All right.
So my mom, who is British, they have trouble with words that end in vowels or words that end in S. I'm not sure why. So anything that ends in an A, they will put a hard ER at the end.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
anything that ends with an ER, they'll put an AH at the end.
yeah.
That's
Okay,
just how it goes. Beta, not better.
right.
Or if something ends with an ER, they put an A at the end. I don't know why.
Uh-huh.
Just how it is.
Yeah.
For some reason, she struggles with your name too. She can't figure out that it's Wes. She says Wes.
Wes. Yeah,
Wes.
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
sure you've heard this because you talked to her quite a bit. So we were at dinner the other night, and we figured out it's like, well, Wes sounds a lot like Pez. So you're the Wes dispenser.
The Wes dispenser.
So you're a dispenser of knowledge, and the great thing with franchises, like we just talked about, the dispenser is not filled with bad franchise opportunities. They're good franchise opportunities. So whenever you pull the Wes dispenser after going through the process, you get the right Pez.
All right. Wes dispenser. We could probably run with that. We could run with that. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know if it's the way I enunciate or what, but a lot of times if I'm on the phone with someone and they ask for my name, Wes, W-E-S, gets interpreted as West,
Wes.
W-E-S-T. And they're like, oh, so you're named West, not East? Like, I've gotten that so many times, and I'm like, what do I have, like a lisp or
Well,
something?
hey man, look, you
like,
could be just, instead of the Wes dispenser, you could be the compass.
I guess. I don't know. But that's interesting. I had no clue that your mother was actually British. That never came up in any of our conversations, and I definitely never detected it in her accent.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's adopted this
whatsoever.
weird sort of British Southern fusion. Let's put a bow on this sucker. So, Tripp, what's next for you, man? What's coming up?
So yeah, well, one of the reasons why we got into the restoration thing was the real estate, and I'll fall back on that. It goes back to having an eye on the now and having an eye on the future. And what we really wanted to do was, I think I even mentioned this, but take properties, remediate them, and sell them. So our, the goal is to kind of have a sister company where, but we knew the logical step of that. Okay, well, we got this property, we bought it. Okay, great. What are we going to do with it?
Sure.
We got to hire contractors to actually do this work. So what are we doing? No, let's in-house that. Let's learn how to remediate it. Let's learn how to restore it on our own. The profit margins will go up if you're doing that in-house. So the next step is actually to, start seeking these properties out on our own. During Florence, it was kind of the light bulb that went off. We were presented with opportunities where people wanted out.
Yeah.
They were done.
Yeah.
Like they suffered a total loss, and we even got approached a couple times and said, just take this off our hands. We're moving to Texas. We're
Really?
moving across town. Like, I don't want this nightmare. And I was like, wow. And not just a hurricane. I mean, just dilapidated properties.
Well,
in
what's
general.
going on
goes
right
involved
now?
with it, yeah.
What's going on right now?
The tropical storm.
No, I mean, I'm saying like with COVID, like there's a lot of people
Oh yeah,
looking to get out. Like we just went under contract 2 weeks ago on a piece of commercial real estate that we're going to use for our businesses. We got a
Man, you're right.
still
Dude.
on it.
The fallout of this is going to be, unfortunate. I never want to capitalize on anybody's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the situation. If you're in the position to take these properties that people can't handle,
And if they need out that bad, you're helping them out.
Exactly, they're asking you. You're not coercing them. You're not forcing them. But it really set the light bulb off of okay, these opportunities are there. We can do something. They can't do anything. They want out. They want to move on. We can take these properties. We can purchase them. We can remediate them in house, low margins, and with some interior decorating and real estate, hint over here to the right, that somebody wants to get into. We have the whole system to take this thing from beginning to end and turn it into. That's kind of the future of what we're going to do. Meanwhile, still doing what we do and helping people that don't want to move. That's still always going to be a thing at the core of it. But it was learning how to kind of flip is the wrong word. I don't like that word.
Invest in real estate. It's an investment.
It's renovation.
Well, I think it's brilliant, kind of hearing that strategy, right? And that's one of the things.
Stepping stone. This was the first step.
Sure.
Learn how to.
You take that first step, you see other steps you can
right.
take.
Yeah, you like fish. You like to eat fish. You're gonna go to a supermarket, or you're gonna go out and catch your fish.
It's like it sounds like you guys came into this with kind of an idea of where you wanted to go, but it's like once you get into it, the path begins to become a little more clear, and you get to kind of build off of that, right? So one of the things I try to advise people on is think about the end game. And a lot of people, that's counterintuitive to them, right? They're like, dude, I haven't even figured out what business I want to get into, and you're telling me to think about like end game and exit strategy. And I'll circle that back to one of the intangible values of a good franchise is when it does come time to sell, you're going to have a much easier time in all likelihood selling your business if it's Restoration One versus Smith & Phillips restoration business.
That's right.
Just like we'll be able to sell our Shelf Genie franchise a hell of a lot easier than we could sell Wes and Kelly's custom pull-out shelving business.
Branding matters.
Yeah.
Branding, yes. Guaranteed territory, yes.
That too.
Because if we do the Smith and Phillips, there's no defined territory. It is what we make it.
It's arbitrary.
It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's completely arbitrary. But there's not a Restoration One that can come within our defined.
That's right. It's protected.
As you said, that's the part of the assets you bought at the outset.
There is, and I'd be denying if there weren't assets.
But in addition to that, it's like if you were to go to the Restoration One corporate office and say, "Hey, we think we want to sell," it's in their best interest to go out and find qualified, interested people to line up and want to talk to you about buying your business. Whereas it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to go out on your own and try to sell an independent business. But I like what you're saying in terms of how you guys are planning to kind of build off of this foundation that you've laid. And that's something I always try to encourage people to think about is whatever business you get into, think about what you can parlay that into.
What's next?
Right.
How are you going to grow it?
Yeah, like with our Shelf Genie business, now we're getting into closet organization. We just set up a garage organization dealership. It's not a franchise, right? We didn't go out and pay a franchise fee for this.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done a dealership first, but it's such a similar business. We can plug that into all the systems and processes we've learned through our Shelf Genie business. We expedite the learning curve with that, but it's complementary. And
you wouldn't have probably done that if it had been
no way.
Wes and Kelly's.
Yeah.
Like you would have just been so hyper focused on what you're doing.
We're,
You're right in the fact that a franchise allows you kind of the foresight of where can this go. Like, it does take a lot of pressure off of you being branded, Graham. I mean, very, very important. That brand is there. What are you going to make of that brand is all up to you.
Totally.
Locally.
That's right.
But you know, it does allow you a little freedom and a little space to think, okay, I've got this. This is a safe space. Goes back to our safe space. You've created this. You put in a couple of hard years of work on it, but you created a safe space. You've grown something. You've established something to think about what's next. And we're not going anywhere. In the end, we've made this. We're proud of it. We're thinking about where can this go? Where can it parlay into? and it does afford itself some pretty good opportunities in a very real estate landlocked community where you know and we've seen that, and I think that's going to be kind of our next step. But it's not imminent, but it's as soon as so we're co-owners, very active owners. I handle kind of an operations side. She handles you know management side of the insurance claims, and as soon as we can kind of fill our hats that we're currently holding, it's off to the next kind of now what are we going to do? I mean, as much as I'd love to play golf every day, and there's something else. I mean,
sure,
there's something else.
Well, I think that's good. So we'll wrap this up, but you know, kind of in closing, are you happy that you did believe in yourself and take that leap into business ownership?
Man, I'll tell you, in the moment, it was so hard. My wife is now sat down with us. And
Hi, Kelly.
So many restless, anxious, but again, I give her a lot of credit for even making this possible for our situation. But oh my gosh, man, to think of me right now being in the same situation. I don't even know who that guy is anymore.
Yeah.
I had lost who I was, ambitious, and you know what I'm good at, and as projects is helping. I truly enjoy that part of it. It is stressful. It gets overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a roller coaster. It's an emotional roller coaster.
And if you're not
that's a good problem to have. That you're feeling something.
If you're not feeling that, if you ever get in a job, that's a great point. If you're ever in a job, which Kelly knows, for years I wasn't feeling it anymore. It was a obligation.
Yeah.
If it turns into an obligation, it's no longer a passion. I don't care what it is. Look for something else. I mean, what's the point? I mean, what's the point? Now, I squatted way too long and should have done this but here I am, and I did it. And
it's never
no
too
way
late,
I
baby.
turned back. And all the circumstances that made me here, I'm very grateful for. No way I could ever go back to that other thing. I don't even, like I said, I don't even know who that guy is.
Yeah.
And you reach a point where you're like, that's enough. I got to get back to that other guy that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Even the emotional, even the ups and downs, but it was fun getting there.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, when you own a business, but it's so cool to hear, your story, and I appreciate you sharing it. And that's what this podcast is all about, right? It's just, people that had that drive to take more control of their life, chart their own path to freedom, and you've done exactly that. There's always work to be done. It's not easy. It's not like every day is like hanging out on the beach sipping margaritas.
No,
it's far from that,
exactly
but
it's rewarding.
It is. It's super rewarding, man. So look, congratulations on everything that you've done, everything that you've accomplished, everything that you will accomplish from here. And appreciate you dropping in on the Path to Freedom podcast with me. Graham, thanks for coordinating all of this. Graham's the man that made this happen. So appreciate you and all of your support along the way and everything that you do, brother.
Always, man.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in.